Amazing Women Speak podcast, inspiring and motivating every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing, individually and collectively, as it was established at birth.
I am Crystal Gunn, the founder of Amazing Women Network and host of Amazing Women Speak. And so thank you all for tapping in and sharing this podcast with your friends and families. It will surely be a blessing to you all. But before we get started, I want to say happy Father's Day to the amazing fathers around the world, and for the daughters whose fathers are no longer with us physically. We find ourselves in a club that we didn't choose. So on this day, I send you hugs and prayers of peace. So in September, I was speaking with a spiritual advisor of mine, and during the conversation, he said, Crystal, you have a say in this. And so now I'm a firm believer in that we can manifest our lives, and we have the ability to create the lives of our dreams through our thoughts, prayers, and intentions. But when he said that I have a say in this, for some reason on that day, it hit different. And I practice this in most areas of my life, but neglected in other areas. So I've been very intentional since then in making sure that I have a say in every area of my life. And it's refreshing and it's empowering. And I realize that I'm not the only one who forgets it. So this episode serves as your reminder. So let's talk about it, because you have a say in this. So Michele, sending you lots of love and hugs on today, and welcome. And once again, I thank you for saying yes to Amazing Women Speak, for being my BFF, and for sharing your God-given gift with the world. Let's get to it, my friend.
Good evening. Thank you. I send that love and light right back to you. Nina, I understand that you too joined the club that none of us ever want to be a part of. So it's subject to be an emotional night, and we're walking in faith. And so we show up and we allow God to have his way in these conversations, because as Crystal said, we get a say in all things. And so I chose today to be different, because I usually am in lockdown and shut the world out. And God is inviting me to do something different. So I'm grateful to be in company with you amazing women, as I am each week. And for no one else would I say yes than my BFF. These are curated conversations where Black women get to uplift one another. We get to laugh, we get to cry, we get to share. And so I'm grateful to be in those spaces, all the yet even more today. So we welcome you. Fastest hour of your day. We're going to dive right in, because this conversation is deep and it's going to require us to have as many minutes as possible to pack all of the ways in which we get to have a say in all of the ways we have continued to allow somebody else to have the say over our greatness. So let's find out who's in the room. Nina, please come in and introduce yourself. We cannot hear you.
Cannot hear you. No.
About now.
There you are.
Yes.
And happy.
Very, very faint. Very faint.
How about we start with Dr. Kim and I'll work on it. Can you hear me now?
It's still
Going in and out. But yeah, we'll start with Dr. Kim.
Well, greetings, everybody. My name is Dr. Kim Phillips-Rolle, and I am a psychotherapist, as well as a speaker, trainer, and coach, and author. And I'm honored to be here with you today. And definitely also wish everyone a happy Father's Day. And my father is with the Lord, but I am excited that my two dads are together today. So I'm, yes.
Thank you. That's a different way to receive that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you guys hear me now?
And you're still in and out.
Yeah.
So it may be a connection.
There you go.
So when you're closer, you're better.
A little closer. Okay. All right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Father's Day. And to everyone whose father has gone on, love and light to you. I'm Nina Henderson-Myers, CEO and founder of Henderson-Myers Home Services. And I have to be that we are still moving on our father's legacy.
So unfortunately, Nina, we didn't get to hear the rest of your introduction. You cut out. So
Try to go out and come back in.
Yeah. And maybe try it on your phone as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So Dr. Kim, let's get this conversation started, and we can certainly invite Nina in when she is able to reconnect. You have a say. And so as Black women, we've been socialized to be quiet. We've been socialized to be grateful for what it is we do have, right? To take a little and own that and not ask for much. We begin to think about what God has purposed for our lives. We recognize we do have a say. Please tell us about the beginning of this journey for you when your voice was silent.
I would say for me, coming up, like you say, many of us are socialized to believe that, women ought to stay silent and not have a say. In fact, when I was younger, I felt like there was maybe a call on my life, but I went to the pastor and he said, "Oh, God don't use women." I said, "Oh, great," because I wanted to be a psychologist anyway. And so I started my path to go that way. And but it was like women are supposed to be, silent in the church and everything. Of course, I later came back around and began to fulfill that area a little bit later, after already starting my psychology path, but we got them both in. And I would say for me, different experiences through college helped me develop my voice a little bit better. I would say different challenging situations helped strengthen my voice and help me learn about who I really was. And I used to be the type of person that used to let people walk all over me. And but that gets very tiring. And then one day you decide you're going to stand up and you're not going to let people walk all over you. And I think too, the more I learned, the more about who I was and understood my value a little bit better as well, I began to stand up and I began to have a say in my life and not just accept what's happening to me. And so that's kind of how I started my journey. And as I, of course, went through my spiritual journey, the church, I kind of learned a little bit about just the example that was set for me. When God looked outside, he saw darkness, he saw emptiness, and he could have said, "Man, it's dark out here." But he didn't. He said, "Let there be light." And I began to learn that I could say, and that words are used more for creation than they are for communication. So that's how I started my journey. And I began to speak in everything into existence for my life, and I started learning a little bit later that, nothing has meaning except the meaning we give it. And so I began to give things meaning as they happen in my life. And instead of letting it make me bitter, I let it make me better.
So I want to back up a little bit where you talked about, right, like people walking over you and you deciding finally, right, like enough is enough, right? We always weigh the risk, right? Like, what is it going to cost me if I do this? Instead of paying attention to what is it going to cost me if I don't? Did you have any of that conversation with yourself, or you were like, I'm just going for it? I can no longer sit in this space and allow people to have their way.
I think so. A lot of times the conversation is an inner dialogue or inner conversation. Even if I didn't have it outwardly, I believe I got tired of how it felt and then also just being overwhelmed with not saying no. I remember when I first started saying no, my friends started saying, "Did she say no?" Because I always said yes and then was miserable because I was trying to please everybody. And then I realized I can't please everybody. And in order for me I can't do it at my own expense. So I need to just, as I learned again about who I was and my value a little bit better, I realized I'm not called to everybody. I'm not called to everything. and that I have my own specific, I feel like I have my own serving line, and the people that are in that line, I'm to serve. I'm not to serve everybody. And so I'm not going to try to do that.
I
That's
love that. Your
powerful.
own serving line. Note to self.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are called to be in service,
Mhm.
Mhm,
not to
mhm.
everybody. I love
Yeah.
that. So welcome back, Nina. Please introduce yourself to the folks so that they can get to know who you are and what it is you do.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Let's start there.
Yes.
Good. We hear you
Okay.
well.
Okay. I'm Nina Henderson-Myers, founder and CEO of Henderson-Myers Home Services, which is a full service real estate and mortgage brokerage. So um, I have been in that business or been licensed almost 20 years now. And I am happy to be in good company today and sending love and light to everyone on Father's Day.
Thank you, thank you. So we were asking, right, like to take a step back before we really begin to unpack what is it like to recognize you have a say, right? Like take that step back when you felt like you didn't, where you had to either go along to get along or you had to sit in silence because of the ways in which Black women have been socialized. Tell us a little bit about before the after came.
For me, that effort actually came fairly recently. So for decades, I was a yes person, a people pleaser, and an overachiever. So for me, it was always just trying to meet an expectation or in whatever setting I was in. And that stuck out to me most, though, I would say, probably when I was in the automotive industry. And I was in that industry for almost 13 years. And in the environments that I was in, I was challenged quite often every day to kind of say, I know this is not how this is supposed to be. And I know I'm the only one here that is being subjected to these things. But it was like, okay, well, do you walk away from this salary and this experience and start off on your own when everyone else would think you were crazy for doing so? Or do you say, hey, I have a say in my life, and if I want to start over, I'll start over?
Yeah, how did you respond to those initial no's? Don't do it, stay in this comfort zone, stay in the security and safety of the paycheck. How did you respond to those folks who did not see that your need to have a say needed to trump everything else?
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of the no's were self-inflicted. So there were only a couple of people that I shared, my thoughts or desires with in that area. And to be honest, it kind of pushed me in the area of realizing, hey, I can do what I want to do, more than me saying, okay, everybody else is saying stay here, so stay here. Because it kind of felt like, okay, I just said what I said, but you're not hearing me. When you say a response like, this is how I'm feeling every day in these environments, and then it's, yeah, but look at what you're making, look at what you're doing, then in my mind, it was like, okay, so obviously you're not hearing me. So their voices didn't weigh as much as my own saying, okay, but if you do walk away and fall on your face, what are you going to do? And would that be realistic? When you see everyone just say, these are the markers you're supposed to be going through in life to meet these standards and these expectations. So if you are climbing that ladder in that way, who are you to change direction and to not go with the status quo? Most of that was self-inflicted.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Because oftentimes, right, especially as Black women, and I continue to lift that up, because we are the most disrespected, invisible beings on this planet, right? And the idea that we get to have a say is minimized unless it looks like the way the rest of the world has figured it's supposed to look like for us, right? So to walk away from the comfort of a salary and say, this is no longer serving me or serving my family, and I need to go in a different direction, right? Like you usually would get a ton of no's about that, and not paying attention to the loudest voice sometimes, again, because of the ways we've been socialized, and that's in your head. That's in your head. And that doesn't just turn off, right? Like none of these decisions are a light switch. I like to think of life as a dimmer. There's going to be the ups and the downs, right? I am sure the minute you said yes, it wasn't like green light, go. There was some questioning, there was some, right? Like, did I make the right decision? And part of that process is necessary. And I want our listeners to hear that that's necessary. Yeah, what is planning like? What does that look like? Either one of you, right? Like as we're beginning to make these transitions from, I own my story. I get to have a say. What does the planning of that look like? Be it your job, your personal life, relationship, whatever that looks like. What is the planning of that?
I think it's figuring out what you want. What I find so often, even when I'm coaching my financial clients, is, and it's the question that I always ask, how do you want to live the rest of your life? And a lot of times people don't know. So you have to, I believe, you got to look at it and figure it out and do a whole lot of praying. A whole lot of praying and asking for guidance. But yeah, I think that first step is, and that second step is just knowing that there's going to be a lot of failure, tears, and pain along the way. But on the other side of that is so much triumph, and it feels so good to know that when you say, God, use me as you see fit, and you start walking in your path, nothing beats that feeling. Like nothing.
Yeah.
I can say for me, it came actually ironically after my father passed a little bit. And I remember making a Facebook post about it because it was like, it was illuminating to say, wait, I can't live my life the way I want to. I don't have to keep walking the path of expectation. So even at that point, I had already walked away from the salary and had been for quite a long time, but it still was a level of check off the boxes, stay in, the lines of what everyone expects. So when you decide to say, I want to do things that most people consider unconventional, you do hear that like, what? Like, what? But who does that? And when you hear who does that a lot, I started to think like, okay, am I a little off in this thinking? And that planning or realization kind of came when I said, hey, if I'm not feeling good now and I'm on this path, you can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. So it just turned into the what if I don't do it will be worse than staying on this path. And then I just started.
You went on mute, Nina.
Actually, you can go back to the way it was. Me having self-talk of, okay, if you try that and it doesn't work, go back to the other way. But if you don't try it, you already know you're not happy right now.
Right. Yeah, I really like that you lifted up, right? Walking that path of expectation, which could lead you down so many different roads, because depending on what arena you're in, somebody's got a different expectation of what they want from you, right? And like connecting that back to Crystal's statement around, like, you got to figure it out for yourself. What is it that you want? What is going to drive you? And then how do you begin to create that path? So Dr. Kim, what would you tell me when I come to see you? Right? Like, as I'm trying to figure it out, because I've been walking the path of expectation, while I clearly know that it's not serving me, right? Like, it's costing me emotionally, some spaces financially, right? Like in ways that I can't get back. What is our conversation when I come see you?
So I agree with Crystal that a lot of times people don't know what they want. And when you ask them, they say, wow, nobody ever asked me that. Nobody asked me that before. And you're assigning them things where, you can write down, what is it that you desire? So I've had that happen before. And then I had a young lady say, well, I don't know what I want, but I do know what I don't want. So I said, okay, let's start there. I like to meet people where they are, right? So let's start with what you don't want. I want you to take a piece of paper and write down what you don't want. Okay, she knew what she didn't want to happen. Okay, because her mind is built that way. And then I said, okay, now when you finish that, turn the paper over and then write the opposite of what that is that you didn't want. So now the mind didn't have to, try to create that and go against that barrier. And that way that her mind is bent and say, okay, now I know this is what I do want now because I knew what I didn't want, and work from that premise. And then I would say also, let's manage some expectations, because I think with success, we all know that the road to success is paved with potholes and speed bumps and roadblocks and detours and all of that. I think sometimes no one talks about that, and you think that, wow, I'm gonna have that, but it's a part of life. So I would say, let's kind of get beneath the surface and figure out what it is that you want, and then let's get a game plan. So we got to have a goal, we got to have a game plan, and then we can go get it.
Right? Like we don't have to have it all figured out. We need to be able to take that first step. And so
Right.
I know oftentimes it's fear, right? Because God has put in us this greatness, right? And I like to tell, like, oftentimes we are living in open air prisons. Like the fear of what your mind could actually do, right? Like that paralyzes us, right? Like to whom much is given, much is required. And I'm afraid of the required. So I keep living small. I keep playing small, living in this open air prison when I know inside of me is this great gift that God has put in me. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid if I actually do that thing, realize that I have a say to live out this gift, what's on the other end of that? Right? What do we do with the fear factor?
We feel it and we do it anyway. You
Right,
feel
and
the
that's
fear.
nice. Dr. Kim, help unpack that for us, right? Because that's easy to say, right? What is it like?
I think what helps
on that thing?
I think what helps that is once you decide what you want to do, I think sometimes what has helped me is accountability. Accountability bridges that gap between what I intend to do and what I actually get done. And so having an accountability partner and being accountable and say, this is what I'm planning to do, and these are steps I plan to take. And then knowing, like when I was writing my book, I was accountable to my best friend. And I was just procrastinating and research this part today. Hey, I got my table contents done. Hey, I got tomorrow I want to work on this. And if I don't get it done, I say I didn't get it done. But I knew she was going to hold me accountable. And so that helped me do the things I needed to do. But I was afraid to write the book or whatever, and it was like, okay, let me just be accountable to someone so that I can get it done. And I think also having the right person that walk you through that, and I do the same thing for her. So we kind of help each other through the process. That's what I say. But yeah, definitely fear can be paralyzing and keep you from doing it. But for the joy set before me, I knew I had to focus on the why. Why am I doing this? And what's on the other side of that? And I just gotta, you still gotta get it done one step at a time. One step at a time.
I love that. It is really important. Like whatever the thing is, it's important to name it, right? Because we can walk under a false title and allow that to be the thing that doesn't allow us to move, right? Is it fear? Is it procrastination? You have to first name that thing, right? And it's easy to
own it,
right? Like to hide behind one thing as a way of not pushing through it, right? Like I can't because ... and owning it when it's actually something else, right? So naming it is that first step. So I know, Nina, right? Like you didn't decide on Monday, I'm gonna quit my job and do this thing, and Tuesday again, right? Like you had to,
right?
You had, there was a path you took, right? Like there was conversations you had, some planning that had to happen before you realized, right, fully, I have to do this thing, right? Like I have to take whatever level of risk it is. Tell us about that part of the journey.
Well, what resonated with me is when you said it, to go into that, when you said a lot of us are fearful of the greatness that we know we are capable of, right? And doing the thing. For me, I am wired of the fear of failure.
Mm.
So for me, I can definitely name it,
Mhm.
because after a while I kept saying, okay, why is it when I go to do certain things, and it was the whole thing of, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to fall on my face. I
Mhm.
don't want it to not work. And so after a certain time period, one of the steps I had to take in the journey was honestly stepping out on faith. It was not me planning it, walking through. It literally was, I left my job on a Friday, or put in my papers on a Friday, and a Monday it was like, okay, execute the plan. And the plan happened within 24 hours of putting those papers in. But that's because I had a word from God, and that one that spoke
Mhm.
to me. And when I had that word, I'm not fearful to move on what he says. I'm
Mhm.
fearful to move when I haven't heard from him. And I know
Mhm.
it's me. That's when I'm like, I want to do that, but I don't know. So in the latter, when it was leaving that salary and doing those things, it was more or less of challenging myself. So for me, I've bungee jumped, I've parasailed. I'm afraid of heights. I remember doing the 3-day walk for Susan G. Komen, walking 60 miles. And when we got to this bridge to go over the freeway, I stopped and I was paralyzed. And I was like, okay, now I've walked this 59 miles, but we not gonna get this last mile to get over this bridge, right? And it took these ladies surrounding me. They surrounded
Mhm.
me where I could not see. And they said, just walk with us and you won't see it and you'll get over the bridge.
Mhm.
So for me, a lot of times it does, speaking out loud what your fear is and having people around you that you trust to say, okay, we're going to cover you in this season, or we're going to support you. And we know what the fear is and we're going to help you through it.
Mhm.
And that even happened professionally, whether it's me saying, I don't like to be in crowds. I don't like to speak in front of people, right? I start to have people to challenge me. Come to this event with me. Come out with me to do this. So they knew, okay, if it was up to me or to go on my own, I wouldn't. And that kind of goes with Dr. Kim said with the accountability. But for me, the real serious change happened when I just challenged myself. So I literally would say, what are you afraid of? Go do that thing. So it was, okay, if you're afraid of heights, okay, we're going to bungee jump today.
Mm.
And nobody said I wasn't afraid of it, because I started to realize just because you're fearful, that should not be a no. It should just be, okay, I'm fearful. Now what?
Right.
Say you're
Mhm.
fearful, but still do it.
Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Right. Like every week we have these conversations. There are a couple of things that we can guarantee that are going to come up. The importance of talking about your tribe, who's surrounding you,
Yes.
going to push you, hold you accountable, love you through, call you in. I don't like to
Mhm.
call people out, but in call you into, right? Like, sis, that together, right? Like we had our tribes are critical, critical.
Mhm.
And when you
Very.
do that self-reflection, you recognize who actually is your tribe, right? It may be somebody you did not expect, because we know everybody sitting on your front row isn't cheering for you. Some folks want a front row seat to see you fail. Tribe
Mhm.
is critical. The other thing that gets lifted up every single time is faith, right?
Mhm.
Like as a culture, Black people, right? Like
Mhm. Yeah.
we're grounded in the church as a way of, and we have carried, it has become baked in our DNA to know that
Mhm.
it's going to take something bigger than ourselves,
Mhm.
able to recognize, right? Like that I have a say, I can do this thing. I can do it with fear. I can do it with uncertainty. I can do it without having all of the answers if I'm walking in faith.
Mhm. And to add to that, basically, I remember even when I walked out on faith, it did not go smoothly.
Mhm.
It did
Mhm.
not go
Mhm.
smoothly. And that which was my biggest fear, right? And this was a prolonged journey of it not going smoothly. But what I took from that is, even if it does go smoothly, you can get through it. So again, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be smooth. You just have to get over the bridge.
How did you not go back though, right? Like, so you said the journey wasn't quick.
Oh no, this was years. This
right?
was
So
you.
why not go back to the comforts of?
Because at that point, for me, once I made the decision, you have to follow through.
Okay.
Once you say, okay, this is what I've done, then that would be a failure to go back in my eyes, because so that would play into the fear itself, right? If your whole thing is failing and you go to do something and it's not working, and so you go back to what was, you still did not complete the task. So technically, that's a failure. So that's what stopped me from going back, saying, okay, it's not going smoothly, but I have to complete it, and then it won't be a failure. It was just a prolonged, rough journey.
I love that, right? Like inviting our listeners, inviting me to think about a different perspective, right? Like if I viewed it this way, what would be the story that I tell myself, right? As opposed to me holding it the way that I've always held it, trying on something new as a way of developing new strategies. I really like that. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And I don't think that life, when you're tapped for something great, it's not gonna go smooth, because it's not supposed to go smooth, because it's those bumps and those hiccups that teach us the next step to get us to the next level. If it was just smooth, we wouldn't learn anything. If it was just smooth and easy, everybody would do it, right? But it's those bumps, those challenges, the failing forward that keeps you moving. The biggest part is you can't quit. So how many times though, asking for myself, how many times do you wake up on a Monday or Thursday and say, okay, yep, yesterday I wanted to quit, but now, okay, I got to do it again. Like, what's the motivating factor for you to keep saying, and this is for both of you to keep saying, I have to keep going. I have to continue with the journey.
You're on mute, Dr. Kim.
Okay. Were you going, Nina?
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. I think for me, what makes me keep going when I feel like I want to give up is the end result. You always hear keep your eyes on the prize, and or the scripture says for the joy set before him, he endured the pain of the cross. I know that there's going to be glory in my story, and I just tell myself it's a part of my story, that is only temporary. I tell myself these things. Like sometimes we got to tell ourselves some things. We have to talk to ourselves, and I believe sometimes we're talking to ourselves and we don't know what we're saying. I remember being stuck one time in a place. I think I had like 3 hurricanes hit my life, personal hurricanes, and I got stuck for a minute. It knocked the wind out of me, and it was just back to back to back to back. I went through like a divorce, and then like right after that, not no time to breathe. Here's a assault situation, but go and get a massage and at a reputable place, and end up getting sexually assaulted, and then my business went backwards. I had a business correction, as we say, and it was just, and I didn't realize what I was saying to myself when those things happened. Here I was very accomplished, but what I told myself is, and I didn't know until I got ready to train a group of people on how to get unstuck. And I thought I always give the assignment to myself first. And so I said, okay, I'm going to give them this assignment to write down the things that, challenges that they had recently, and some of the most challenging challenges that they had, and what is it that they told themselves when they had the challenge. So I did the assignment. And when I did the assignment, I realized that I was telling myself that I was a failure, that I had failed. And no wonder I couldn't get my business back up, because if you're a failure, why try? That means I wasn't trying as hard, because I'm going on the premise of what I'm telling myself in the core of myself, I'm telling myself I'm a failure. And so, but I think doing that, going deeper a little bit instead of staying surface, helped me realize, oh, so I can self-correct. And so then I began to establish some affirmations for myself that I could say to myself, and instead of what I had been saying, so that I can get myself up out of that rut and begin to move forward. So that's one of the things for me that worked.
Yeah, I really love that ideal about the affirmations. Feeding your soul positively has such an impact that we don't give enough credit for the power of affirmations. We need to stop being minority stakeholders in our own lives.
Mhm. Good way to say that.
You have a say, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
as hard as it's going to be, seeing yourself on the other side of it, recognizing that the can is in you, not the can't, is really critical. And again,
Mhm.
Nina, I really like that different perspective, right? Like, I will not fail, right? Like, I refuse to fail. And that'll be the thing that'll take me through. No matter what I go through, I can't go back because I set a course for myself. And anything short of that, right? Anything short of that. And right, like, so because we are all unfortunately in this club, right? The thing, I'm a daddy's girl,
Mhm.
unapologetically. And
Mhm.
the need to make sure that all of the things he dreamed for me, that I pursue that. If I ever question whether or not I have a say, I have a duty, right?
Mhm.
In me is a duty to honor all of the things that he wanted for my life, right? So I still find myself looking for the next thing to overcome, the next hill to climb, so I can say, Daddy, we did it again, right? Like, whatever that thing is that needs to drive you, find it and hold on to it. Stop being a minority stakeholder in your own life. You deserve. Somebody is watching. Somebody needs your greatest. And
Mhm.
playing small isn't going to serve anyone. As a
Mhm.
Black woman, playing small
Mhm. Mhm.
isn't going to serve.
So what do we say to the individuals listening that get stuck behind the but, right?
Mhm.
Yes, this was my assignment. Yes, I'm supposed to do this, but I'm a single mother. I have these 3 kids. Yes, I'm supposed to do this, but I have these bills to pay. Yes, I'm supposed to do this, but what do we say to get from behind the but? What do we do? How do we get from behind the but and honor and move in that greatness that God gave us? What do we do?
Well, my perspective on that is that you will stay behind that butt if you do not move forward. My mother is a cancer survivor, and I remember her telling me about her chemotherapy sessions and everything, and how they were telling her this was like a very rigorous course of chemo she had to do. And the
Mhm.
nurses and everyone would come and tell her, "You're so positive. You're so positive." And she has a saying that, "Why not me?" So instead of saying, "Why me?" when things happen, she says, "Why not me?" And she'll go down the list of all these horrible atrocities that have happened to people in the world and say, "Okay, so why not me?" So once you realize that there will always be a but you decide, like you said, the road is not going to be smooth. Most triumphant stories that you hear, they have a backstory of a trial that they had to go through before they got there. So if you do not in that moment say, "Hey, I have to move past this and past the but and see what's there," then you will stay behind that. And that will be your excuse not to realize what your purpose is. So for me, that's literally saying find something outside of that. So if you say, "Okay, I'm a single mother," So I want to do this, but I'm a single mother. Okay, can I find an exception to start this on one day instead of the full week? Can I find some resource to help me in some way? But you have to take the first step to get to the step after that. But if you stay behind the but, we can all just say, I don't want to get up in the morning to go to work, because my back hurts or this hurts or that's happening. So that's how I look at that as far as getting behind butts, even though, and I'm not trying to minimize it, that it's easy. But to me, it's not about necessarily being easy. Our journeys weren't designed. No one wrote out a book and said the perfect life is going to be where everything runs smoothly. I've never heard that in the Bible or anywhere else where it's supposed to be easy. So I think if we stop looking at it as it should be easy and say, this is going to be a challenge. So I have to challenge myself to move beyond these buts when I get to them and try to think of a way to get beyond it. That's the first step.
I think also too, that's great. And I piggyback on that, saying that, use the but as a reason and not an excuse. So, as far as I'm a single mother, or I have this obstacle and I have that obstacle, like I said earlier, in every adversity, there's an equal or greater seed of opportunity. And so it's just that it exists in seed form. And so that's why we hardly see it. But the positive is there along with that negative. It's just what you deciding to look at. Is what you choose to focus on. There is a way to accomplish still what it is you want to accomplish. And if you really, really want to accomplish it. So I think, like you said, let it be the reason. Let it be the reason you do it. Yes, you need to do this because you're a single mother. So you can be an example for your children, so that you can change the trajectory of your family, so that they can have, you can position your family for generational wealth. So their situation, they don't have to start all over, but they can pick up where you left off and go further. So you can come up with a reason to do it instead of an excuse not to do it.
Michele, you on mute.
Nina, reflecting back on your journey, what's the one tool you would give your younger self?
Self-confidence, believing in myself. There were so many people around me that believed in me. I never lacked anybody around me having that positive reinforcement. It was me believing it.
Yeah, Dr. Kim?
I would say I agree with Nina on that one. Just if I could say something to my younger self, it would say, just stay focused. That what you're going through now is only temporary, and that you have within you the power to change what you're going through. It's not going to always be this way. And I think that's what kept me through some of the most challenging parts is reminding myself, as a friend told me, this is only temporary. It's only temporary. And it is only temporary. You're not going to always be here. And sometimes we act like it's going to always be this way. And so we respond that way. We think, are we still there?
Yes.
We act like it's going to always be this way. This is just the way it is for right now. But I would like to say, I visualize my way out. I verbalize my way out, and I internalize my way out of the situation that I was in. I began to put up pictures of it, of things that I wanted, or where I wanted to go, or if I wanted to go back and work on my PhD, but I didn't have the money at the time. And I was working, and I was like, oh, those were my butts. Oh, but I got to work full time because I got to pay this. And, oh, I don't have the money to finish up. And so, but I began to work with the way the mind thinks in pictures, right? I studied the mind thinks in pictures. So even when we say words to ourselves, the words are painting a picture on the canvas of our imagination. So when I say refrigerator, you're going to see your refrigerator, whether it's a top, bottom, or side to side, or whatever it is. And I begin to work with the way that we're created. And I started saying, well, let me put up pictures of where I really want to be or what I want to have. And I can see myself there. I could get there. And then I begin to speak it over myself. And I began to speak what I wanted to see happen. I put up pictures. I remember going to the website of the school, and I saw that the degree in a they had a copy of like what the frame was going to look like, and there was a degree in there. So what I did is I took my name and I typed it, and I typed the degree that I wanted, and then I screenshot
Love
that, and
that.
I
I
printed it.
love
I
it.
printed it. I
I
printed it
love it.
out, and then I went back and put my name and my degree there, and then I put it up on in my computer. And when it was time, we manifested it, and all of the money. I mean, all of the money that I was lacking for the rest of the terms, all of it came. All of it came, and I began to get up every morning, and I began to write out. I'm so happy and grateful now that I finished my PhD in XYZ, right? I'm so happy and grateful now that I drive XYZ, and I'm so happy and grateful, and now that I make XYZ income on a monthly basis, and it feels so good to make this income, or whatever it is. And I began to speak it, and I began to see it. I closed my eyes, and I began to, the imagination, right, is a preview of a coming attraction. And so I began to work with these principles. They work for whoever works them. And I didn't have anything to lose. And I manifested that. And went right through it, was able to step out of my job, and money came forth. I think an uncle passed away, and he left me some money. And that's how I went back to school, and I was able to sit out for the next year and a half and finish up and pay the money that cost for my living and everything. Everything that I was believing for, we had to believe for. And I'm gonna tell you, back in the day, I used to think that was a bad thing. I said, why I gotta use my faith to get everything? Everything I gotta
Hmm,
believe for. But that was
hmm.
a gift to be able
Right,
to believe for. I have to
right.
believe for my money for the wedding. I gotta believe for this. But I know how to believe, and I know how to believe for whatever I need. And I know how to believe it into my listen, I had to believe for my husband. I manifested my at that, and then God said, go back and teach other people how to do it. I taught you how to manifest, and I
Right.
used the principle act as if, and it worked for me.
Yeah, right. If you, again, a different perspective, right? Like
Mm-hmm,
if we keep trying on the same thing,
mm-hmm,
it's not going to produce the kind of outcomes that you want. I really love that. And I love that you invited us to remember that we do think in pictures and the power of that, and to visualize, to manifest, to draw out that thing that you want, right? And still recognizing that while you have a say, you deserve what's coming on the other side of that, right?
Mhm.
Again, stop playing small. You are dope, you are amazing, and you did the thing, right?
mm-hmm,
You did the thing. And if it's no other place you feel comfortable, stand in front of the mirror and own that you did it. And right now, I'm speaking to myself before anybody else, because I was guilty of the collective we, right?
mm-hmm,
Did some amazing things in my career. And I said, we. And my mentor slowed me down and said, Michele, you did that.
Mhm.
You did that. And until you can speak I, every other Black woman around you is going to use the collective we. There's a collective in there is a power in the collective. There's also power in you acknowledging that you had a say and you did the work. So Dr. Kim, thank you for that, right? Like if we don't get anything else out of this conversation, two things I want us to take away: the power of manifestation through visualization, and Nina, the idea that there's another perspective to consider, and try that on to drive you to that thing that's going to make you realize you have a say, and that the victory on the other side of that is yours to own. I told you, fastest hour of your day. Here we are sitting at 7:54. Dr. Kim, how can people find you?
You can find me. Actually, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Dr. Kimberly Phillips. I'm also Dr.
Kim, hold on, because you are breaking up.
Phillips-Rolle, the page Kim Possible Phillips. Can you hear me now?
No, yep, start over. Where
What
can they
about
find
now?
you? You were breaking up.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook at Dr. Kimberly Phillips, or Kimberly Phillips-Rolle, or Manifesting Your Mate. Also, you can email me at drkimphillips@gmail.com.
Love it.
I also see clients on BetterHelp. So if you're on BetterHelp and you're looking for a therapist, I'm a licensed therapist out of Texas, and I'm Dr. Kimberly Phillips on there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nina, how can folks find you? First, let's step back and tell us a little bit about what it is you do in the space that you own, and then how can folks find you? Also, I'm a little curious about your why, right? Like to go from automotive into real estate. Connect those dots for us.
Well, well, actually, I was still in real estate, but not full time when I was in
Okay.
automotive. So I actually started out in the mortgage industry when I was 18 years old. And I love houses, I love architecture, and I was always into that thing. But it was the expectation, right? So straight out of high school, I started college, and I was like, "Yeah, somebody needs to pay for this," because I moved out when I was 18, and so for me to be paying rent and everything else, I said, "Oh, well, if I go into automotive and plant on that side." First, I was in manufacturing for management and everything. I said they'll pay my tuition. So that's what I'm going to do. So when I went in, I'm going to school, but they kept bumping me around my schedule. And I'm like, well, you're paying tuition, but you're not paying for all these books. And it got to the point where I don't know how long this is going to happen. I'll never get my degree at this rate. At least let me get my real estate license to have something to fall back on at that point. And so that's when I started to do real estate at the same time, but it wasn't full time. And then at some point, God spoke to me one day and just said, "Hey, I got a plan for you." And I was like, "Huh? What? Okay." And I moved on it. But in doing that, even at that point, I did not go into real estate full time. That's when I went okay, I'm going to go to school while I follow your plan and do all of that. And then it was like everything bottom fell out, and I was like, okay, time to go get a real job. So I went into automotive in management at that point. And after I ascended up to reporting to the CEO, that's when I was like, yeah, I'm good at this, but this is not what I want to do, and stop halfway doing what you want to do. And so that's when I went into real estate full time. So I am a real estate broker. I'm also a loan officer. And I have a credit repair platform. So I try to help our community by any means necessary in building generational wealth through the use of real estate and those other tools that go along with that. You can find me at Realtor Nina, NINAHM, on Instagram, as well as the THEE Legacy Lady on Facebook. And my website is www. Henderson-Myers Home Services. My last name is MYERS, so Henderson-Myers Home SVCS.com.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like do nothing halfway because you only get half of the result.
Yep. Yep.
I love that. Crystal.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Stop halfway doing what you were called to do, right? We don't serve a halfway God. So why on earth would we halfway do what he's called us to do? And again, that was note to self, right?
Right.
That was note to self. So let me just get some sponsorship out of the way. Amazing Women Speak is sponsored by the Amazing Woman Network, which was created to empower Black women globally, focusing on our pillars of reclaiming our personal power, mind, body, and spirit, reclaiming our financial power, and increasing our social involvement. We strive to assist every Black woman in owning, honoring, and executing her amazing again, as it was established at birth. And you can find Amazing Women Speak on YouTube, Spotify, and Roku. And please, when you go to those platforms, do me a favor, subscribe, find an episode that you missed, bless yourself. I'm sure there will be one, if not many, that will speak to your soul, and then share them with someone else. Continue to be a blessing to others. Nina.
Yes.
Dr. Kim. I thank you both for being here. I thank you for helping us in our mission of assisting Black women in owning, honoring, and executing our amazing. I think we did a little more of that today. I appreciate your transparency. And I was over here taking diligent notes because I needed notes on all of this today. Sometimes these topics are for me specifically, and everyone else just gets the blessing as a result of tuning in. So I thank you. I thank you, ladies. I thank you. And I want to say, amazing women, please remember this. When you're struggling with the thing, when you're stuck behind the butt, remember you are a creator and you are co-creating your life with the creator of all creators. So why on earth would you settle for anything less than what God has in store for you? Written on the top of my wall is, I'm the daughter of the king and everything makes way for me. So please remember that as you go about your way. I am Crystal Gunn. I am an amazing woman. Nope. I am Crystal Gunn. I'm a Black woman. I am an amazing woman too.
Right?
And I unapologetically own all of that amazing that God gave me. Michele.
All of those things are true. Yes. I too am so very grateful. And I always have to close out this conversation by thanking you, Crystal, for being obedient to the call that God put on your life to create a platform where we get to honor, we get to learn, we get to grow collectively in a way that uplifts and encourages and never puts down and forgets. I'm so very grateful that you continue to say yes. When we don't even have it figured out, we know that God will make a way. So thank you for your obedience. Today, we invite you to snatch your power back. You have a say. No longer leave it in the hands of anybody other than you and the Creator. Stop being a minority stakeholder in the greatness that God has put on your life. I am honored to have been in company with both you, Nina, and Dr. Kim. My life got better today. The nuggets that you shared, like Crystal said, I am clear on this day, if I've not been clear before, that this message and this conversation was for me. So I thank you for the gifts that you shared. I thank you for the gifts of who you are as Black women in this world, demonstrating what it's like to show up for yourself, to recognizing that you have that say and not letting go of that. It is an honor and a privilege to be in community with you both. My name is Michele Harper. I am a Black woman and I own my amazing without apology. Nina.
I appreciate you all having me. It was an honor to be amongst you. I will implore everyone to continue to thrive versus survive. That is the motto that I have adopted this year, and having my say. And I am Nina Henderson-Myers, a Black woman, and I am owning my amazing every single day.
Yes, I love it. Dr. Kim, you are on mute.
Thank you. I am grateful and honored to be amongst this greatness and all the amazing women on this platform and all the amazing women who are actually listening to this podcast. My name is Dr. Kim Phillips-Rolle. I am a Black woman and I am amazing and I own my amazement.
I swear, when it's really going to be good. I don't know if Mercury is in retrograde or not, but when technology is messing up, you know that the message is good. And what is being said definitely needs to be heard. Listen, one last thing. So people have been asking, it is finally happening. I'm so ecstatic about it. It is the I Am an Amazing Woman experience. It is our women's conference, which will be happening September 8th and 9th. Early bird tickets are available for attendees and vendors. So please go to go to www.IamExperience. One more time, www.theIamExperience.org. And again, get your early bird tickets for attendees and vendors. We will have some really dope and exciting things. I promise you, when you leave, your life will definitely be different. Next week is our last episode for the season. I'm sad, but I need a vacation. So we will be joined by Dr. Danielle Cato, or Dr. D as we call her, as we talk about how to heal her.
Mm.
Right. So join us.
Who's going to co-host with you?
I know it's going to be so
clear. I'm a passenger on that trip.
I cannot wait. Dr. D is fantastic and phenomenal. And if you're here locally, you know who she is. I cannot wait to have her in the hot seat, as we say. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Father's Day. Again, happy Juneteenth as we celebrate that tomorrow. And we will see you next Sunday at 7 p.m. for another episode of Amazing Women Speak.